The judge remembered me. "You don't remember me, do you?" The judge's question brought the courtroom to a complete standstill. I was standing alone at the defense table, without a lawyer, watching my father's house slip dangerously close to being taken away from me. Across the room, my Uncle Richard sat beside his attorney. His lawyer wore the confident smile of a man who already knew exactly how the story would end. Then the judge looked directly at me again. "You were wearing a uniform that night." My throat tightened. I had no idea what she was talking about. Then she mentioned a town in Ohio, a town where I had been stationed years earlier. And suddenly, my hands began to shake, because I realized something terrifying. She remembered me, but I didn't remember her. 3 months earlier, I had believed the hardest thing I would ever have to do was bury my father. I was wrong. My father, Daniel Morgan, died peacefully in his sleep after years of heart problems. He was 64, stubborn, independent, and the kind of man who would repair something himself even when hiring a professional would have been much easier. But there was one thing he had left behind that had never been about money. His house. A small 2-story home on a quiet, tree-lined street in an Ohio suburb. The paint was faded. The kitchen cabinets were from the 1990s. The basement always carried the faint smell of sawdust because Dad had spent years repairing furniture down there. It wasn't impressive, but it was home. My mother had died 6 years earlier. After that, Dad never changed much. Her blue coffee mug remained on the second shelf. Her handwritten recipe cards still sat beside the refrigerator. And whenever I was deployed and having a difficult week, Dad would send me pictures of the house. He always wrote the same thing. "Come home. I'll leave the porch light on." His will was simple. The house would go to me. Everything else would be divided fairly among the family. My Uncle Richard, Dad's younger brother, would receive investments and some personal belongings. But Richard wasn't satisfied. At first, I assumed his anger was simply grief. Then the letters began. Richard claimed my father had promised him the house years earlier. He claimed he had paid for major repairs. He said Dad had depended on him. Then his attorney filed a formal claim against the estate. The first time I read the complaint, I honestly thought there had been some kind of mistake. My father had never told me Richard owned the house. I contacted several attorneys. The first wanted a retainer I couldn't afford. The second couldn't take the case for months. The third warned me that probate and property disputes could become extremely expensive. I had some savings, but most of my money was already tied up in my transition out of the military and the repairs the house desperately needed. Then the court date arrived, and I had no lawyer, so I walked into that courtroom alone. That morning, I wore a dark navy suit instead of my uniform. I tied my hair back and carried a folder filled with everything I had managed to collect. Bank statements, property records, tax documents, emails, my father's will. Across the courtroom, Richard looked completely comfortable. His attorney looked even more confident. When the hearing began, the attorney stood and presented his case. He claimed Richard had spent substantial amounts of money maintaining the property. Then he produced a document, an agreement supposedly signed by my father. I stared at the page. My father's name was printed at the bottom. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. The signature looked right. Almost too right. The attorney turned toward me. "Ms. Morgan, do you have counsel representing you today?" "No." He nodded slowly. "I see." Those 2 words made my face burn. The judge looked at me. Ms. Morgan, you understand that you are representing yourself? Yes, Your Honor. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted it to. The judge studied the document. Then she looked at me. Do you have evidence contradicting this agreement? I opened my folder. I had documents, I had bank statements, I had property tax